I am proud to serve as your Kern County Superintendent of Schools. I am so pleased to be able to join you this morning for the Hope Through Mentoring webinar series. This is the first in a four-part series featuring incredible trainers who are impacting communities statewide. I thank them for sharing their amazing talents with you, and I thank you for dedicating your time to professional development. I would not be where I am today without the love and support of my mentors. And so I am passionate about this work and the importance of mentorship. I learned early in my career about the benefits of collaboration. Nothing great is achieved alone. It takes others to help us achieve individual success. My story is similar to many of you here today. I lived in a loving home, but we were impacted by poverty, mental health issues, and frequent family moves. In each move, we found ourselves at a new school, and in every case, I found a connection with one or more teachers that provided anchoring. My teachers believed in me and encouraged me to pursue bigger dreams. I've had several mentors throughout my career who have shaped who I am, how I see the world, and the type of leader I would become. As a young community leader, one mentor was particularly formative. He asked many questions and helped me problem solve by reaching my own conclusions. He also told stories of similar situations that paralleled an issue I was struggling with. Through stories, he gently guided me to understanding how my words and actions could be perceived by others. I learned that how we communicate is more important to what we communicate. I always left our coffee sessions with a lighter heart and a notepad full of my own ideas or next steps. Absolutely priceless, because I knew he was genuinely invested in helping me improve my leadership practice. As the Kern County Superintendent of Schools, one of the best parts of my job is to be able to recruit and mentor a team of highly dedicated and talented leaders in our organization. I enjoy mentoring others because I want to pay it forward. I appreciate the impact my mentors had on me and are still having today. Mentoring comes in many shapes and forms, and it can ebb and flow as needs arise. I have served as a formal mentor to individuals with scheduled check-ins, regular communication, and acting as a consultant, coach, and cheerleader. I have also served as a mentor in less formal ways by developing relationships, then trust, and providing insight or ideas on an as-needed basis. Mentors are people we can turn to with leadership and life challenges. A mentor may offer counsel we don't want to hear, but we know they have our best interests at heart. We are in unprecedented times with challenges and opportunities many of us would not have imagined a year ago. We are here in this moment as leaders to help raise others up, support communities, and help develop an ideal world where everyone thrives. Aren't those the same goals that we strive to achieve through mentorship? Thank you so much for your dedication and enjoy your day.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Ann Sherwood, and I work for Kern Behavioral Health and Recovery Services on the prevention team. And I'm lucky enough to help with the Drug-Free Kern Coalition, which is the host of the Hope Through Mentoring Conference. It's been a crazy year, but we're really excited that we're still able to hold the conference, even though it's virtually instead of in person. But the conference has taken a lot of time and effort and planning from a lot of partners that we want to recognize. So those include AmeriCorps, the Kern County Superintendent of Schools, Garden Pathways, Drug-Free Kern, Kern Behavioral Health and Recovery Services, the Department of Human Services, and I'm sure there are more that I'm forgetting. But thank you to all of these organizations for their hard work and for making the conference possible. So today we're going to be hearing from our first speaker, Stephanie Inyama, and she has a two-part series on mentoring elements. Over the last 25 years, Stephanie has developed programs and provided services to nonprofit organizations on strategic planning, collaboration, capacity building, technical assistance, facilitation, and training. In addition, she brings a strong background of community engagement, planning, and organization around such diverse matters as child welfare and the homeless delivery systems. Stephanie builds and leverages strong and diverse relationships across a wide spectrum, including transitional aged youth, community providers, city and county agencies, local governments, law enforcement, and first responders. So I'm excited to hear everything she has to share over our first two conference sessions. Throughout the session, you're able to submit questions in the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen, and those questions will be addressed and answered the last 15 minutes of the session. So Stephanie will address as many questions as possible, and we can follow up with additional information that we can email out if we can't address everything that's been submitted. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Stephanie.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you all for joining us today. I wanted to set the tone of today's session by letting you know the importance of your role to your mentees and to their families, and we'll start off by playing this short video.
Some kids don't have their dad or their moms there that can help them.
As a mom, I was feeling very vulnerable and scared.
Growing up with my mom, single mom, so she always had to work. It was just not a lot of family time.
These young kids, I mean, there's so much in the streets right now that if they don't have positive role models or someone to tell them right from wrong, it's so easy for them to go down the wrong road.
I was able to provide a place for my children to live, but it wasn't that great of a place. You know, we had a roof over our head, food in our stomach and everything like that, the basics, but it was scary for them to go outside.
My oldest son, Aloy, was very angry. I was in a very abusive relationship with their dad, and he was unfortunate enough to be the oldest one to see what was going on, so he had a lot of anger.
You know, the things that they seen at home, like the domestic violence and stuff. My second son, he was bad. He ended up, being in the system and everything for his behavior problem.
My mom and my dad got divorced when I was young, and I didn't understand. I didn't understand what divorce was, but I just understood that my dad wasn't coming home anymore.
I got real sick in 2012. I lost my sight. I couldn't take care of myself, could barely move, walk, talk, do anything. It was my oldest son's senior year. So, I really didn't get to do nothing, none of that.
He had a problem with fighting in school. So that's what prompted one of the teachers to try to get him involved with a mentor.
Jennifer came into my life, and it makes me kind of emotional right now. She just rescued me.
The impact that you'll make on just that one person with that investment of time is something that can't be measured financially. That impact is something that's going to stay with that mentee for the rest of their life.
I learned to believe in myself through him. He gave me that courage. I had someone who supported me.
He was the light switch for Aloye. He played a huge part in his life.
I couldn't do things for my children. Their mentors was there for them. and is still there for him.
She's grown into like my best friend, and then she became like my family.
It's a big difference. My oldest son, he on honor roll. Cedric, he graduated on time.
My youngest son's on his last year of high school. He's made the dean's list. You know, he's looking forward to going to college and playing football. He has all these dreams that I just don't think he would have ever thought he could even accomplish if it had not had it been for Save Our Youth.
Just bringing joy into someone's life, you know. So why wouldn't you want to be a mentor? It's great.
There's a lot of kids out there that could benefit from your help.
Every child needs someone to help them.
That need is tremendous.
I was scared of heights, and she got me to try new things.
And I'm a witness with my sons. They don't know how much of an impact they can actually make in someone's life.
Boosted me out of like, you know, my shell. Like, I was like, oh my gosh.
Changed my life from being the kid that didn't want to school to now going to college.
I think everybody should be a mentor.
Welcome, welcome. I just wanted to make sure that you all understand that mentoring is something that makes a big difference. Sometimes we think, well, what can I do? What can I say? Being a part of being a mentor to a mentee, your impact is not just with that mentee, but with that mentee's family. So with that, we'll go ahead and start our PowerPoint. Okay, so we have Mentoring Basics 101. So did you know that this month is National Mentoring Month? Every year in January is National Mentoring Month, and it's a way that we celebrate the campaign for quality mentoring. And it provides opportunities to connect young people with caring adults, or with, there's different types of mentoring now. There's actually professional mentoring, there's young adults with young adults, there's peer mentoring. So all types of mentoring is what we celebrate in the month of January. Next. So what is a mentor? You know, when you think about that, you say, okay, I want to be a mentor, but what really is the responsibility of a mentor? Next, it's a role model. You know, the young adults or your youth, your mentees are going to look to you as a coach. They're going to look to you as a friend. Next, they're going to look to you to see how the impact that you have on their lives. As a role model, they're looking to see they're looking to see what you say, they're looking at what you do. As a coach, they're looking for feedback and support. And as a friend, they're looking for someone to trust. Next. So some of the key ingredients about being a mentor. When you're new, we have all of these expectations. And so when you think about when you're starting, you just want to have really basic, realistic expectations. One of the key ingredients is to be consistent. Consistency in the life of a mentee is extremely important. There may be times where a mentee doesn't have consistency from the adults that are in his or her life. So you being consistent and making sure that you're going to be there when you say you're going to be there, you're going to keep your word, what you say you're going to do what you say you're going to do, makes a big difference for them. You also want to make sure that you're staying in contact. A lot of times we think, well, the mentee could call me, or it's, you know, it's their turn. We're the adults in the relationship. So it's up to us to role model how we want the relationship to be with our mentees. So you want to also make sure that you're keeping your commitment, keeping your word, because like I said, there are times when mentees don't have positive role models in their lives that they can look to who can keep their word. So you may be the first person in the mentee's life that is consistent, that keeps the contact, that keeps the commitment. And you want to build trust, listen, but the most important ingredient is to have fun. Next. So can mentoring be harmful to a young person? Next. Yes, it can. If a relationship ends early, If it's less than 3 months, research has shown that there's regression in their self-worth. They feel feelings of accomplishment. If it's 6 months or less, it has no positive effects and may actually be more likely to initiate alcohol use because you don't understand the impact that it can have on a young adult when a mentor pulls out of the relationship early, right? And then if it's a year or longer, research has shown the greatest benefits is if the relationship is a year, if it's a calendar year or a school year. But as long as when the mentee and mentor are put together, that it comes to a closure, those are the greatest benefits. Next. So the mentoring relationship cycle. Next. So you have the beginning. Next. And you have the challenging and testing stage. These two stages are the critical foundations of what the relationship is going to be. During the beginning, you're getting to know each other. There's going to be some challenging and testing. But around the midpoint, 6 months or more, that's where the real mentoring starts. That's where you're connecting with your mentee, you're building your relationship, you get to know who your mentee is, your mentee gets to know who you are, and then at the end we have the closure. Now I always like to tell my mentors, closure starts at the beginning of the relationship. When you first meet with your mentee, you're talking about setting up your boundaries, you're talking about setting up ways of communicating, and you're also talking about when the mentee relationship is expected to close so that it's not a surprise. Closure is something that should be a celebration, and we'll talk more about that coming later on in this slideshow. Next. So in the beginning, this is the trusting stage. This is when the early stages of the mentoring relationships start. Your expectations are discussed and defined. It's important that trust be developed. And how you develop the trust is keeping your commitment, keeping your communication, and you make sure that once the trust is developed, it'll provide the foundation to move forward. Because mentees, especially the teenage years, and the younger mentees are more open to building trust. But when you're dealing with high school age mentees, it's a little harder, and trust is really key to being developed to make sure that relationship is successful. And it may take a few sessions or a while to develop the trust. And sometimes you'll feel like, am I making a difference? Should I continue? As long as your mentee continues to show up, you know that the mentoring relationship is doing okay. They may not show you, you may not know, but the fact that they're continuing to show up is letting you know that they're still invested in the mentoring relationship. And then we talk about hopes, fears, and expectations. So I want you to take a minute and write down, if you have a piece of paper, what are your hopes and your fears and your expectations from starting this mentoring relationship? It is scary at first. When you start to go, it's like, well, I hope my mentee likes me. I hope I don't do this. I hope I don't do that. Just remember, just relax and be yourself. And the key thing is to make sure is that you have realistic expectations. Next. So what are your expectations? Some of the things that you want to do is get to know your mentee. Be an active listener and ask for their opinions. A lot of times we want to impart and share so much of what we learn and what we want to give to our mentees that we forget to listen. And it's very important that we ask for their opinions, because asking their opinions is showing that you value them and you value what they're saying. You always want to stress the positive, which is sometimes hard, especially now in our COVID-19 time. So you want to make sure that there's, if it's like, well, I can't do anything because of COVID-19. Well, you can always say, well, we can always go and socially distance and go to a park and take a walk. So you always want to try to stress for the positive, because a lot of times they don't have the ability to see the positive. They're living in the moment now of how they're being affected. And so sometimes it's not always a positive perspective that they bring. And you always want to separate the behavior from the person. Mentoring is about relationship, relationship, relationship. And sometimes it's really, really hard to separate the behavior from the person. In other words, it's hard not to take it personally. But what we have to do is, what you have to understand is that they're testing you, because they have had experiences with adults in their lives that all they have to do is act up and they go away. They're wanting to look at you to see, are you going to stick around even when I give you a hard time? So just recognize the ability for you to separate the behavior from the person. And if you're in a mentoring program, the mentoring staff can also help you with that. And then some of the things, when we talk about what are your expectations, some of the don'ts. Next. So don't expect to save a life. That's the very first thing. We get into mentoring, we think we want to make a difference, we want to do this. If you're feeling so strongly about it that you're not hearing what your mentee is saying, then you have to think about your expectations in the relationship. Are you doing this more for you so you can feel good, or are you doing this to make a difference in the life of a mentee? And if this mentee has gone 10, 12, 15 years, and their life has not been the easiest, and you come into their life, you match with them for a year, and then you expect to save a life, that's not realistic. What you can expect is to make a difference and have a positive influence in their lives. And don't be afraid to admit that you don't have the answer. And that's something you can say, you know what, I don't know, but I'll find out. Or let's look on the internet, let's look at research, see what the research says. No mentor, no human has all of the answers. So it's fair to say that you don't have to be afraid to say, I really don't know that. Let me get back to you, or let's research this. Please don't ever lend money. Please don't ever lend money. The problem with lending money is once you lend money, it will never end. And it's also a way of having a mentee can manipulate the mentor. If they know that if they're going to help me, if I can just tell them help me by giving me money, then the intention of the mentoring relationship is lost, because it's replaced by the value of how much money, what they can get out of you, what are the material things they can get out of you as a mentor. And please don't violate confidences unless it's a crisis situation. And we'll talk more about that later on. The mentees, and you'll have this discussion with your mentees before you move forward, as you're moving forward in your relationship, about what is confidential and what needs to be told. And your mentee will always note what are confidences that you as a mentor must share with either the program staff, or if you feel that there's a need for help. And you want to also let your mentee know that I know you've shared this with me, but I've got to tell this to someone because I'm required to tell this. We need to make sure that we're protecting you or others we think that are of harm. Next. So building trust is a process. And it's not, like I said, it's not going to happen overnight. You always want to focus on the strengths and talents of your mentees. Nobody, and we're all human. We all like to talk about ourselves at one point or another, right? So one of the things you want to find out from your mentee is, what are some of the things that they're really good at? What are some of their talents? And focus on that. When you show interest in what they're good at and their talents, you get the buy-in and you get the building of the trust, because they really get to see that you're invested in them. You want to set clear boundaries up front. That way there are no surprises. Oh, you didn't tell me this. Always set boundaries, because setting boundaries is what creates a healthy mentoring relationship. You want to demonstrate care and respect at all times. You and your mentee can agree to disagree, and that's okay. But it's not what you say, it's how it's said. So you want to make sure that if you're not agreeing with your mentee, or if your mentee is not agreeing with you, that there's a way that's said it so that the mentee still feels that you care for him or her and that you respect them at all times. Next. You want to always be consistent, and you're going to hear me say this throughout. Consistency, consistency, consistency. Young children, young adults, mentees have had so many adults and so-called role models in their lives that haven't demonstrated that they are role models. They haven't demonstrated that they have been consistent. When you show that consistency, that's part of the structure of building the trust. Try not to take it personally. Like I said before, sometimes they're going to act out. They're going to say things that hurt your feelings. And you can say, when you said that, it hurt my feelings. I'm not sure if you're aware that when you say this, it hurts my feelings. There's nothing wrong with allowing your mentee to know how they're affecting or what impact they're having on you, as well as they should have the same dialogue with you. You're having open communication and you're always being open about your relationship, what your likes or dislikes. And like I said, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Don't rush the relationship. Go by the cues from your mentee. If your mentee seems to be a little slow to warm up, respect and honor the space that your mentee is in, because it shows that you're valuing your mentee and it's not about what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to feel. So you want to make sure you just take the relationship the way the mentee, you roll with the punches with the mentee and give unconditional support. And you can agree to disagree and still give unconditional support. And you can, and if you see that your mentee is kind of going way to the left field, you can say, it's a discussion about, okay, so what are the pros of this? What are the cons? You know, you can role play the impact of that decision. So there's different ways to give support, even when you don't necessarily agree with the choices that your mentee is making. Our job as mentors is not to dictate or tell them what to do. That's the role of the parents. The role of a mentor is to be supportive, help them see that, you know, that there's A, B, C, and D choices. A lot of times they don't know, they can't see outside of themselves to know that they do have other choices. And you, like I said, you always want to give unconditional support. Next. Communication. You want to be non-directive and non-judgmental. So your communication can come in the way that you look, the way you're looking at them, how you acknowledge their feelings, by giving honest feedback, and by listening. By listening, you're saying, so what I think you're saying, what I heard you say, it sounds to me like what you're saying is this. Sometimes mentees can't always express how they're feeling, or they can't always communicate. So you always want to try to ask exploratory questions to prompt them, to get to understand. And then you always want to bring it back to them. What I think you're saying is this. What I'm understanding you're saying is this, so that they know that you're listening and that you're paying attention. And you want to ask appropriate open-ended questions. And when I say appropriate, there are certain things, you want to speak to the mentee where the mentee is at. So if the mentee is sharing with you, you don't want to go and ask questions that they haven't even brought up a topic on, because sometimes those topics that are personal can trigger them. And it can have a negative effect or a negative impact than what you expected to happen. So you always want to make sure that you're in the moment with the mentee, right where the mentee is, and that you're not moving ahead or you're asking down the line, like, what does this mean? Stay with the mentee where the mentee is. And when the mentee is ready to open up more and communicate with you, he or she will. Ask appropriate open-ended questions and adapt to their style. You know, sometimes depending on your match, like I'm an extrovert, I'm loud. Now, if I get a mentee that's kind of quiet, I know that I have to kind of tone down until the mentee gets to know me, because the mentee may think, yeah, she's nice, but she's awfully loud. She's too loud, right? And I don't want to turn my mentee off. So you always have to make sure that you try to adapt to their style and pick up the cues from them, especially in the beginning of the relationship. And there's nothing wrong with sharing your experiences as long as they're appropriate shares, because what you don't want is your mentee to do something and say, well, you know, you said you did that 10 years ago, or you did that when you were my age. So you want to share appropriately to make sure that they're understanding and you're building communication and trust, and they're understanding the examples that you're giving them from when you were younger or through a similar experience. Next. So the first thing you want to do is set boundaries. It is very, 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 very important that you set boundaries with your mentees. Boundaries are not always clear-cut and may vary according to the circumstance. So some examples of boundaries are COVID-19 boundaries. We all know we have the 6 feet. We have to wear the mask. So you want to make sure that that is one of the first things that you do with your mentee, to make sure that you and your mentee are adhering to safe practices. It's really about safe practices. Now, your mentee may say, you know, my mom doesn't, or my family doesn't, we don't wear masks. You want to make sure that you're always wearing a mask and you're practicing the 6 feet. And you want to establish with your mentee, I understand that you don't do it with your family, but when we're together, we have to do it. These are the guidelines of the program. These are the guidelines of the Centers for Disease Control. These are the guidelines. These are the standards for keeping safe. I want to spend as much time with you as I can, but we have to do it in a way that's safe. So having conversations about boundaries should not, if it's an uncomfortable conversation for you as a mentor, then practice it before you meet with your mentee. So you want to talk about the initial match boundaries. When are we going to meet? How often are we going to communicate? You go according to the program guidelines and then what you and your mentee have established. Personal boundaries. You know, when we get the vaccine and we're all healthy, I'm a hugger. You know, when COVID-19 first started, I didn't hug a person for like 3 months. And I couldn't even hug my mom and my son. And so that was very hard. So you want to set personal boundaries as far as hugging or holding hands or elbow bumping, anything about that. Relationship boundaries. You want to make sure that within your relationship, you agree. Sometimes the mentee may say, you know, I don't want to talk about this ever. And so you want to talk about in the relationship what's okay to talk about and what's okay not to. Because sometimes in the mentee's life, they could get triggered and you don't want to have that happen. So you always want to make sure that you're looking at the boundaries in the relationship so that it's a fun, safe relationship. And then there's situational boundaries. Sometimes you don't know you need to set the boundary until it happens. And that's something that you and your mentee can come to terms with. When we talk about setting boundaries, it's not about you as the mentor setting the boundaries. It's a relationship. So it's you and your mentee together setting the boundaries, because your mentee may have some boundaries and say, you know, I'm sorry, I just don't like to look people in the eye. I prefer to look away. Then it's a conversation that you have with your mentee so that you're constantly building that trust and support. Next. So when we talk about clarifying confidentiality, right? So mentees won't open up unless they know the conversations they have will not be repeated. So some of the things that you can talk to your program staff about, and you can talk to your mentee, you can say, I want you to feel comfortable sharing anything you like with me. I will do everything I can to keep your personal business private and to assist you with whatever is going on in your life. Sometimes I may need help and I may need to talk to the program staff, but I won't disclose the information that you shared with me, but I may ask them for advice. And I will only share information if it's absolutely necessary. Are you okay with that? It's a conversation of inviting them to say yes, they're okay. So it makes them feel like they have some control over what you're sharing with, if you have to share outside of the relationship. Next. Okay, so the exceptions to confidentiality. These examples do not fall under what is considered confidential, and must be reported by mentors immediately. So when a mentee or another child is at risk of harm to themselves or others, it immediately has to be reported. If your mentee or another child is being abused, neglected, or exploited, it must immediately be reported. Your mentee reveals clear intent to commit a crime that is reasonably expected to result in injury of a person, it must immediately be reported. And so these are the three that you need to have a conversation with your mentee and say, if you tell me this, I have to report it. I'm mandated as a mentor, as a mandated reporter for the program, that I have to tell someone out of the program staff. If it's something that's happening right there, then you call 911, or you can, there's the abuse hotline. Whatever the protocols of your program are, you must follow those protocols when it comes to confidentiality and things that must be reported. Next. So then you have the learning and the development phase, right? There's challenging and testing. This is where the real mentoring comes, right? This is where you're actually building your mentoring relationship. You're seeing your mentee, you're with your mentee for a while, you're getting to learn each other, and you're starting to understand, okay, sometimes he's in a good mood, sometimes he's not, sometimes he may not feel bothered. Just be there for your mentee in the space that he's in and say, okay, if you don't feel like doing anything, we can just sit here and look at each other, or we can go and take a walk. This is the heavy lifting takes place. This is where sometimes your mentee is feeling more comfortable. And so the more comfortable they're getting with you, the more they're going to test you until they get over that, until they've like, okay, my mentor is cool. I'm okay with my mentor. But this is the heavy lifting. This is when you start to feel like in the beginning, it's like, oh, everything is great. And then it starts to phase into, why are things getting difficult? Why is it that my mentee doesn't like me? No, your mentee likes you. Your mentee is just testing you. And you're also getting to know the true mentee, and the mentee is getting to know the true mentor. And they want to test you. They want to see what's going on with you. They want to see how you react, because they're wanting to trust you, but they're not sure. Mentors, you explore self-challenges. Within this relationship, not only is the mentee changing and growing, but so are you. You're having personal growth, depending on your relationship with your mentee and where it's at. Your self-esteem could be challenged. I know mine has been challenged many times dealing with mentees. I'm thinking like, well, is it me? What's going on? Your self-worth. Am I really doing a good job? You know, your self-confidence. Is this something I should be doing? As long as your mentee continues to come and shows up, you're doing okay. If you're finding that if there's more not so good times than good times, then maybe you need to have some intervention with program staff or someone who's assigned to the program that can help you get through that. Maybe there's a listening problem, right? Sometimes you hear mentees say, well, my mentor doesn't listen to me. We always need to make sure that we're listening to understand and not listening to respond. So this, as well as the mentee going through the challenging and development stage, we as mentors will as well. So just be prepared to have feelings of, why am I doing this? Is it worth it? Does it make a difference? The answer to all of that is yes, you're doing this because you're making a difference. And this is just the tough, challenging stage that you go through. All relationships, no matter who you're with, you have the good, you have the not so good, and you have the not so good, but then you have the good again, right? So you want to make sure that you're just understanding that it's the natural evolvement of the relationship. Next. So what's the best mentor approach? So there's three types, right? You have the developmental, which is focused on building a relationship based on the interests and needs of the mentee. You're looking to see, how do I keep them invested? How do I keep them involved? What are their interests? Let's do this. If they like science, we can look on the internet and research things, or we can go to science exhibitions. Then there's prescriptive, focused on telling the mentee how to behave, how to engage in school, how to act with others. That's prescriptive. And then we have the instrumental, which is focused on helping the mentee achieve goals and leveraging relationships to do so. Next. So what we found is with developmental relationships, the mentees felt more supported by their mentors, and they believed they would be there if they were needed. With the prescriptive relationships, there was frustration and lack of satisfaction. If you have someone who's a mentor, who's supposed to be a mentor, acting like an adult who's fixed on trying to get a certain outcome. I want you to be this way. I want you to act this way. I want you to do this. That's not very helpful for the mentee. It's not helpful for the mentor, and it's not helpful for the relationship. And so the mentee is just going to check out because he feels frustrated, because he feels that he or she feels that they're not being heard. They're frustrated. There's no satisfaction. It's like, well, what's the point if you're telling me what to do, you're telling me how to be, and you're not listening to me? Now, instrumental relationships, the mentees felt supported. They gained specific skills needed to advance toward positive development and goal attainment. They felt like, yeah, I can do this. I've got some skills. I'm learning the things that I love to do, that I'm actually learning the skills to do that. Next. So when we talk about closure, be consistent in your communication. As I said before, you talk about closure in the first meeting with your mentee so that it's not a surprise. And closure is not something that should be a negative or a sad thing. Closure could be something that you create a photo album, or you create something to show your the history of your relationship. So the closure can actually be a great ending to a great relationship. You want to find common language to sum up your feelings with your mentee. You want to be able to say to your mentee, you know, this is how my relationship with you has changed me. This is how I've grown by being in the relationship with you. This is what I've learned from you. And the one thing that mentees love more than anything from their mentors is finding out how they impacted your life. Finding out that you've actually learned from them. It is so powerful when you see their eyes light up like, you learned from me? I taught you that? And so that's one of the things you always want to make sure is that you share. Provide feedback that provides growth that you've observed. Let them know how you've seen them grow, how they've improved in school, or even the way they carry themselves, that they have a different kind of confidence. Let them know that you feel that this mentoring relationship has had a positive impact and what it looks like for them. And be prepared to listen and affirm their fears that they have, because they're going to say, well, I still want you, or I don't want you to go away. If you can continue, you look at the program, if that's necessary, or if that's possible. But sometimes it's not possible. And you can let your mentee know that it is okay. You're going to be okay. You're fine. And a lot of helping them with that is having like maybe you do a collage, or you do something that gives them that gives them a gift of the relationship that they can remember you by, right? Like I said, a photo album, or if you create something, or a card, anything that you can create for them or with them that they'll always have. So when they look at that, it's sitting on their desk, or they take it with them, they'll always remember you, and they'll remember the good times, and they'll remember the good stuff that you said to them that has a positive impact on them. And then share with them how the relationship has positively impacted you as well. Next. So there's a few things I'd like for you to remember. There's going to be times when you're talking to other mentors, and those other mentors are telling you that their relationship is great, and their mentee, they're so close, and they're this and that. Never compare the success of your relationship with another mentor-mentee match. It's just, it's two different people, right? That mentor-mentee match is different than your mentor-mentee match. So you can't compare it because it's different individuals. Your relationship is going to go the way it's going to go. It may take a while. It may be fast. You click and you're on the go. But just because you start on the go doesn't mean it's going to be that way all the way through. Because being human beings in relationships, sometimes there's good times and sometimes there's challenging times. So you always want to make sure, never compare your relationship, because you can't base your relationship on anyone else's relationship. It's two different relationships. It's four individuals, and two are together and two aren't. So you can never compare and never feel bad. It's interesting. Okay, I'm happy. They hit it off. Ours is taking a little longer, but I'm committed to staying in there. Always be supportive of the mentoring program staff, even when you disagree. The worst thing to do with your mentee is to talk about the mentoring staff or talk negatively about teachers or adult figures in their lives. Your job as a mentee is to help them understand, well, why do you think they're this way? Or what can you do? Or sometimes it's like, you know what, sometimes people are the way they are and we can't change them, but we can change the way we react to them. We can change the way we respond to them. So you always want to make sure, because when you start talking about the mentoring staff or other adults, teachers who are in their lives, guaranteed they are going to go back and tell on you. They always do. They're young adults, they're children, they're going to tell, especially when they're upset. Well, my mentor said you would be this way. My mentor said that you're this kind of person. You never want to do that. You always want to make sure that all the adults in the mentee's life are always aligned. And it's very important, because if you don't, it's going to be the beginning of the ending of a successful mentoring relationship. Work with your mentee to establish mutual respect, friendship, motivation, and measurable goals. Sometimes, you know, depending on your mentee, some mentees need to, like, give me a goal. Let's try to achieve this. And you want to make sure that whatever goals that you're setting with your mentee, that they're attainable. So if your mentee is getting D's, the thing is like, so this semester, let's get an A. That's not realistic, and that's setting your mentee up for failure. Let's say, do you think we can aim for a C minus, right? And if they get a C or C plus, that's even better. Or if they get a D minus, which I don't see the point, but sometimes you see D minus, do you think you can get a D? Make sure that the goals that you set for your mentee are attainable. And then as they start to embrace those goals, you can make them a little more challenging, but the goal is to make sure that they feel and believe that they can succeed, that they can achieve. And if you start by setting goals that are unreachable, that will definitely just bring their self-esteem, their motivation down. They won't feel motivated. Would you feel motivated if you felt like I could never achieve? And even as adults, we feel that way, right? So we want to always make sure that they feel like they can achieve the goal that's measurable, and that they feel motivated, and that they're getting the friendship and respect, that they're feeling like you respect them, because a lot of times our youth and young adults don't feel respected by adults in their lives. So as mentors, you always want to make sure that they feel that there's mutual respect. If they disrespect you, then the conversation is, I've never disrespected you. Can you, let's talk about, why do you feel the need? Or, and whatever the conversation, whatever is comfortable for you, but you always want to address a situation in a conversation. It's not punitive. It's not about telling them what they did wrong. Sometimes you have to give examples. And share your own experiences. And sometimes you may have to make up some experiences so that they can get the point, to understand what you're trying to say, so they can see, oh, the light at the end of the tunnel. Oh, okay, I understand what my mentor is saying. I understand what my mentor's been through. And sometimes it'll land and sometimes it won't. But don't give up, because they're expecting you to give up. Next. So with that, we're finishing awfully early. To all of our mentors, I just wanted to say, the fact that you're on this call, all 100 of you, thank you, that you're on this call, on this training session, and you're invested. It's a thank you to you, because being a mentor, it sounds great, but it's not always easy. And it takes a special kind of person to be a mentor. Not everybody who wants to be a mentor should be a mentor. And it really takes a special kind of person to be open to learning, open to understanding, open to admitting when he or she is wrong and owning it. Because as a role model, as a coach, and as a friend to your mentees, they're looking at you and they're going to model your behavior. So if you keep it real with them and you're honest with them and you're grounded in your commitment to being a great mentor, then that's all they need, is someone who cares. And I think now we will open it up to question and answers.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. We really appreciate your willingness to give your expertise and input for this presentation today. So we do have a question here. It says, If I am assigned to a mentee for work and don't control the length of time I am assigned to them, how can I ensure that their transition to a new mentor minimizes hardship and consequences to the mentee when they are reassigned?
Well, usually when you're assigned, there's a time frame or a time period they'll tell you. Most programs are. I'm not aware of any programs that are putting mentor and mentees together and just saying you're together until we end the relationship. So now, if that is the case, then you want to talk to the program staff, like about how long do you think that this match is going to continue? Because you both need to know. I mean, it's traumatic, right? I mean, even if it's just a relationship with a friend, now you see them and now they're gone and you're like, well, what's going on? What happened? So you want to always try to find out when the relationship is expected to end so that you're talking about the transition. And maybe you and your mentee are preparing for that by doing an activity to come to the closure day. Any other questions?
Yes, so we do have another question. It says, if I disclose my duty to report as soon as I start working with my mentee, do you think it makes them more fearful to confide in me? How do I manage that?
Great question. So the whole point of being able to disclose those 3 points is for their safety. And that's the conversation, is for your safety and for the safety of others who fall within those parameters. I have to report it because I need to make sure you're safe. I care about you. And I have to make sure that you're safe. I don't know what I would do if I knew that this was going on and then something bad happens to you. So the first thing you can do is, one, always blame the program. It's not you, it's them. You always want to blame the program, one. Two, it's really about their well-being. You're gonna you let them know, they say, the reason why I have to report this because like I said, I have to make sure you're safe. I care about you. I want to build a relationship with you. We are building a relationship, and I want to make sure that you say it's really about the safety. It's the program rules, one, and really about the safety of the relationship. You always want to say it's about your safety. That's why it's important to tell them up front. And then when they do disclose it to you, say 6-9 months down the line, say, remember when we first met and I told you that there were certain things that I had to report and it was this and this and this. Well, you know that you disclosed that to me, so you know that I have to report it. So how should I handle it? Do you want to come with me and I report it? Do you want to be there? Or do you want me to do it? You're still giving them a choice in the reporting, because sometimes they may say, well, yeah, I want to be with you. Or sometimes they say, no, I don't. But you're still going to be able to give them a choice. But you want to make sure that they understand. And it's really about their safety and their well-being. It's not just because I have to tell on you or anything like that. It's about your safety and well-being. I want to make sure you're safe. If they're telling you about another friend, you care about this person, right? Yeah. And the fact that they told you and they know that it's reportable, because a lot of young kids, especially if you're dealing with kids who are in the child welfare system, like DCFS or on probation, they know what's confidential. They know what's reportable. If they're coming to you and telling you this is their way of asking for help. And you can let them know, I feel, since you know I have to report this, I know that you're coming to me for help. So how do you want me to help you? Do we go together or do you want me to do it? Next.
Thanks, Stephanie. So I have another question here. How can I reward good decisions and progress made by my mentee beyond just praise? Is gift giving allowed?
Well, see, the problem is, and at the first, the gift giving, you have to ask the program staff, because the program, they may have policies and procedures on that. So you want to first check with the program staff. Now, the one thing that you never want to do is reward a mentee every time they do something good, because then it becomes about the reward and not about the relationship. I would say every blue moon, when some kind of spectacular or unexpected thing they do that it's like, wow, then you can do it. And you're letting them know that you're rewarding them because of the hard work and the dedication, what they put into it. Sometimes it may help to just, if they do something little, one time, and you reward them for that. You know, I know that this doesn't seem important to you, but to me it's important because I see that you are really trying for effort. But it's a thin line, and it's a good balance. You want to make sure that it's not every time I do something good, my mentor is going to give me something, because that will happen. So if you want to reward, I think it should be less frequent. And I think it should be either when, if you see maybe your mentee is losing a little motivation and they tried, and, you know, and maybe they went from a D minus to a D, or an F to a D, then it's just like, you know, it's like a cheerleader. Like, yeah, I'm so proud of you, yay. And it also depends on the gift. And you need to make sure that you're not buying expensive gifts. Check with the program as far as the dollar amounts of the gifts. But you want to make sure that you're not buying them a Coach bag or Louis Vuitton purse. Nothing. It's just, you know, I would say keep the gift under $20, you know, so that it's more of a token of appreciation and acknowledgement for them than as to them feeling like they're going to get rewarded. Every time I do something right, my mentor is going to reward me. And then also it's the gift. Maybe what you do is you give them a gold ribbon or a blue ribbon, or you create something for them. You know, a gift could also be a card of, I see you, I see that you're trying, a card of appreciation. So think about the gift. Sometimes it is, you know, you want to think about what type of gift you're giving, and you want to make sure that the value that the youth, because, you know, youth are very materialistic and money hungry sometimes. And you want to make sure that they're focusing on the intention of the gift and not the value of the gift. Next question.
Thanks, Stephanie. So if I disclose my duty to report as soon as I start working with my mentee, do you think it makes them more fearful to confide in me? And how do I manage that?
Well, no, like I said, it's about the conversation that you have with them. And you can tell them, you can talk to me about anything. And if I don't know how to answer, or I don't know how to help you, I can get help, but I will keep our conversation confidential. I will find out, but I'll keep our conversation confidential. If it's one of the three exceptions, it's about safety. And you have to, and I know that feels uncomfortable, but it's the conversation you have about what's safe to tell and what's confidential. So your conversation should be like, well, you know, I have to like, you have to let the mentee know that you can tell me anything, but you know, when you tell me that somebody is going to be of harm, or if you're going to be harmed, or if you tell me somebody's going to be going to commit a crime, or there's an intent for a crime or something like that, I have to tell, because it's about safety. So it's really around how comfortable you are with having the conversation with the mentees. And like I said, if you're dealing with youth who've already been in the system, they already know this. So that conversation may be a little easier to have, but you as a mentor have to be comfortable in having the conversation, because if you're uncomfortable, they're going to be uncomfortable. So it's all in how you pitch it, right? So if you're saying to them, I want to make sure you're safe and the people you care about are safe. So let's just agree that if you tell me this, if you tell me this, and if you tell me this, I have to report it. And then we can talk about how it gets reported. So you still want to pull your mentee in to see, maybe they want to be a part of the conversation, maybe they don't. But you still want to make it feel like, so that they don't feel powerless when you have to report it. You still want them to feel like they're still empowered when you ask them, if one of these comes up, maybe, you know, at the time we'll have the conversation. Do you want to come with me when I report it, or do you not? Do you want to be on the phone when I report it? Do you want to be there or don't? So they still feel like they have a choice, even though it's got to be reported. But there's still parameters within the reporting that they can still take ownership for, they can still be a part of. So it's not like you're doing something to them, you're doing something with them. And I know that it's a difficult conversation, so you may want to practice it before you have a conversation with your mentee. But if the conversation is successful, that means that you've been able to share with them that it's about safety and making sure they're okay and the people they care about are okay. It's not about telling that something's wrong, right? So it's the positive language, making sure that you're using positive language when you're speaking to them, not saying anything's wrong or bad, no negative words. It's about making sure you're okay, making sure that our relationship is sustainable. I want to make sure that you can trust me. So you know that if this is said, I have to report. And then when you do tell me, we're going to have a conversation about how it gets reported. So that you're consistently getting their buy-in and their trust. And I know it's a difficult conversation, but it doesn't have to be a difficult conversation with your mentee. It's all in your frame of mind and how you think about it. Think about it of safety. How do I keep you safe? How do we make sure that the people you care about are safe? This is what we have to do. Okay, next.
Thank you, Stephanie. We have a question here. Is it ever appropriate to have a mentee assigned to a new mentor? I know that personalities aren't always going to match, but can a mentor or mentee be so mismatched that they cannot work together, or should we just push through those situations?
Absolutely. Sometimes it just ain't gonna work, right? So what you have to do, but you have to give it a chance to work. So as a program staff, you've got to like talk to the mentee separately, then talk to the mentor separately, and then talk to them together, because you have to be able to understand. And I would recommend that you talk to the mentee first, because you have to understand what the mentee is feeling, what's going on with the mentee. Then you talk to the mentor, and then you have a conversation about the mentor, and you're able to give them advice. And same with the mentee, you're able to give each other advice. Now, sometimes people meet all the time, and we've all met people that we get along great, and sometimes we just don't. If after, like, I'm thinking like after the first 3 months, like 30 days, and if you're working on it, like the first 30 days, you're working through it, you get to the 60 days, and it looks like it's getting worse, and all the intervention that you're doing is not working, then it's a conversation with the mentee. Do you think this is working? And the question that you want to ask the mentee is, what would it take for this relationship to work, right? And you talk to the mentor, what would it take for this relationship to work? Because sometimes mentors get fixated on what success looks like for them, and it doesn't. I think I'm frozen. Are we there? Okay, sometimes mentors can become fixated on what success looks like for them, and they can take their eye off the prize, which is the mentee. And sometimes mentors can be inappropriate. Sometimes mentees can be inappropriate. So that's why it's important, before you're matching mentors with mentees, that this mentee is ready to be in a mentoring relationship. Are you willing to be open? Are you willing to visit? Are you willing to communicate? And the same with the mentor. A lot of times when you're interviewing mentors, you want to know, like, what are your expectations? What's going on? What do you think is, and if they're saying, well, I want this and I want that and I want to reach for the stars, then it's a conversation, and it's also more training. Sometimes it can be resolved with more training for your mentors and mentees. So, but if it looks like it's just not going to work and the animosity is building up and it just keeps on, then it's the conversation for the mentee. What do you think can make this work? Do you think this can work? And you ask them, and the mentor may say, yeah, I think it can work. And the mentee may say, no, I don't. That means the mentee has checked out. And once anyone, especially the mentee, if they've checked out, then you may have to look at seeing, if nothing else is going to work, you may have to look at rematching them with other individuals. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've run mentoring programs where I've had great matches, and that one is like, I didn't do so good on that one. And, and I've had to just let them just separate. Fortunately, it's been less that and more positive relationships, but it does happen. And sometimes mentors will show up presenting themselves to be one way, and when they get into the mentoring relationship, they're another way. That's why training is very important. And not just training where you're talking at the mentors, but they're actually doing role playing, and you're having, and that way you're seeing how they're working, so that you can coach them on how they're responding to the mentees. But great training, you'll be able to weed out those mentees and those mentors who you don't feel are quite ready, and maybe they just stay in training a little longer. So you'll be able to weed up. But great training, continuous training with your mentors and mentees will help with this, and you'll really be able to see what type of mentors you have when you're doing a lot of interactive, engaging training sessions with them, because their true spirit will always come out during training. Next.
Thank you. The next question is, what are some techniques businesses or nonprofits can use to recruit mentees?
Okay, so business and nonprofits, you deal with a lot. There could be some youth programs that are around. You can look to, like, there's the Boys and Girls Clubs, there's after school programs. There's, just look to see what programs you can partner with, right, in your community. There's also church groups, faith-based organizations that you can look to recruit for mentors and for mentees. So our communities, in every community, every child, personally, I think every child should be mentored, but that's just my own personal philosophy. But in every community, there are youth and young adults who are in need of mentors. And in every community, there are adults who are willing to mentor. You just have to do the work to find out who are the partners. Maybe it's a landscape analysis of your community to find out who in your community is that you're willing to partner with, where you can get a pool of mentors. Like I said, faith-based groups, fraternities, sororities, memberships, the chamber. There's a lot of different organizations within your community. You just have to, sometimes you have to think outside of the box as well. So remember, don't do the traditional thing. Think outside of your box. Who are your partners that are working with groups that are working with other groups? Look into your network to see. There's somebody, if you're a nonprofit, there's somebody in your network that's working with a group or a group of adults or a group of youth. There's somebody in your friends or your networks that have agencies where you can pull people to either be mentors or mentees. So you just kind of have to look around, look in your community, and think outside of the box.
Thanks, Stephanie. What is the best way to end your time with a mentee when their emotions are high?
So it looks like today may not be a good day. So did you want to end the session early, or did you want to do something? And maybe we can just do something and not talk. Let's go for a walk, right? You always want to try to put the decision of that in the mentee's hands so that they feel empowered and they feel like they're relevant, because you could say, well, obviously you're in a bad mood, so I think we should call it quits. That's you as a mentor saying it. They may not. They may be in a bad mood and still want to hang out with you. So you want to ask them, so, today looks like you're not in such a good mood today. So how do you want to handle it? Do you want to just not talk and we could go people watch, or we could go walking, or we could we could look on the internet and just look up stuff? Or do you just want to say, let's try it again next week? Whatever you decide, I'm going to be here for you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to show up next week. If today is not a good day, next week will be a better day. We'll work it out that way. So you always want to try to put the decision of, if we're not going to match today, let's put it in the mentee, let it be their decision, because they may say, oh, well, they may check themselves and say, well, no, I do still want to be together. Okay, so if you're not in a great mood and you still want us to hang out, what should we do? Should we do something that doesn't allow us to talk? We're just hanging out together. So you just want to have the conversation with them so that they always feel empowered. They feel like in the mentoring relationship, their voice, their opinions count. You're looking to them for how do we move forward versus telling them as parents. Like with my son, I'm telling my son, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're not going to do this, you are going to do that. But as a mentor, it's a matter of what works best for you. What do you think we should do? Well, how about if we do this? And sometimes they won't know what to do. So you want to always give them suggestions, 2 or 3 recommendations. Well, what about this? No. Okay, so do you want to? Yeah, I want to hang out. Okay, well, let's just sit and people watch. And so you just want to do it so that they're the ones that are saying they're feeling value in the relationship, and they're the ones that are saying, yes, I want to hang out today, or no, I don't. Today's just not a good day, and I'm just not really in the mood. And for you to say, well, I really wish we could hang out, but I understand and I hear what you're saying. Today just isn't a good day. but I'll see you next week. I'll be here on time, like I am every week. You always want to reassure them that just because they may not want to see you today doesn't mean that you're not going to want to see them anymore. You understand, and you're going to be there for them in good times and bad times.
Thank you. So this question is going to go back to confidentiality, okay? It says, what if I'm a mentor to someone informally, not through an agency or a formal program? What kind of confidentiality do I have to maintain?
That's a tough one, because I think it should be the same thing. I just think that there's an 800 number, I think, and I think someone can get that. There's a number that you can call if somebody's been abused or neglected. I still think that you should still keep those 3 confidences, because it's not going to change whether you're in the program or not. But I think if you're in an informal relationship, it's up to you as the mentor to find out, who do I call in case this happens? That should be a resource, you mentor, that you have for yourself, right? Because either way, because if something happens and it's a crime, the police are going to call you, especially if the mentee said, well, I told my mentor, because the mentees are always going to tell. That's the one thing you have to remember. They're always going to tell. So if you're in an informal relationship with your mentee, as a mentor, I would still look, if this happens, what do I do? Who do I call? And all that information can be found on the internet. But I would definitely keep that and just say, it's about safety. And we're in an informal, we're not in a program, but I know the best practice for mentoring is that if this happens and this happens and this happens, this is what I'm going to do. And maybe you tell them this is what the plan is. Maybe you say, okay, so if this happens, this is what our plan will be. So maybe you make it like it's a plan with you and your mentee, that this is what's going on. Because if your mentee knows that this is what's going to happen and they come and tell you, they're going to be ready to initiate the plan. So maybe that's what you do, is you have the conversation with your mentee and say, so if this happens, this is what they're telling. When you're in the program, they tell mentors to do this, but we're not in the program. But this is the best practice to keep our relationship healthy, to keep our relationship safe, to keep you safe, to keep me safe. This is what we can do. And maybe what it is you and your mentee come up with a plan in case that happens, of what the next steps are going to do. But I would definitely keep that, whether you're in a formal program or not, keep that. But you'll have to come up with a plan for yourself. Or maybe you contact a mentoring program to find out what they do in the event. You can always do your homework on that to find out, what should I do? What is this program in my community doing? What's going on? Look online. What happens? Who do I call? What are the numbers for child abuse? What are the numbers for this? Making sure that you equip yourself with the resources so that you can handle if one of the 3 instances comes up.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephanie. And I think just to follow up on that, even if someone is informally mentoring someone, if their job position in life, even if they're not mentoring through that work where they are a teacher or they work in mental health, they would still need to report it, even if it's informal mentoring, because they are mandated reporters, correct?
Yes, if you are a mandated reporter, regardless of what type of relationship, you are mandated to report. Yes, thank you, Chloe.
Thank you. And then our next question we have is, what about the parents of the person you mentor? Any tips to follow when dealing with the person you mentor and their parents?
Yes, that's a great question. So the one thing you want to establish as a mentor is to make sure that the parents do not feel threatened by you. Because what'll happen is you'll be the good guy and they'll be the bad guy. So you want to make sure that the parents understand that you're there to support the youth, the young adult, or the child. You're there to support them, not to take over, right? You also want to make sure that the parents don't run to you when the youth is doing something wrong and they're bad. They don't run to you so that you can punish. That's something that you just say. If the parent wants you to speak to the child, you can have a conversation with the mentee about it, but you should not be the person that the parent is punishing. In other words, if the mentee does something wrong, they're like, well, no, you can't see your mentor. Maybe you can have a conversation with the parent to say, let me still meet with him, and I can have a conversation on what could you have done better? What could have been different? What can you do next time? That's what helps. And you want to explain to the parent, that's what helps you help them, right? So the parents, one, they should not use you as a reward or a punishment. If you do this, you can't see your mentor. And because what you can tell the parent, like I said, is let me still meet with him and we can have a conversation about how he felt when he was doing it. You know, what can he do differently? You know, some recommendations so you can help your mentee think through the process of what he's done. But a lot of times, you know, they're having parents who feel threatened by you, and you basically just have to let them know that you're not a threat. You're there to support the mentee. Parents are going to want to confide in you. Parents may ask you for money. They may ask you for rides for the other kids. They do not get involved in the family dynamics, because once you say yes, it's going to be hard to say no. Then the parent will get mad at you and make you the wrong person. You want to make sure you keep your boundaries with the parents, and you may have to establish boundaries with the parents as well. You know, some programs may have that, but if not, you have to establish boundaries with the parents. You're coming to pick up the mentee, and the parent is like, well, can you take Johnny and Jeff, his brother? Can you give them a ride? No, you can't do that. And you can always blame the program and say the program won't allow me. If you're not in the program, you just say, no, to be honest with you, I just came to pick up, you know, I came to pick up Susie to spend time with Susie. You know, our time is limited. I just don't have the time to be able to do that. And sometimes you may just have to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. If you want, maybe we can help your kids find mentors or something like that, of course, without making the parent feel defensive. But you want to make sure that you establish boundaries with the parents. You want to make sure that the parents don't see you as a threat. And really, it's about the conversation of supporting them. If there's something that's going on, you can speak to the mentee about what they can do differently or how they thought about it, not telling them they're wrong. You're not the disciplinarian. And that's something you may have to tell the parent. I'm not the disciplinarian. I'm the friend, I'm the support, I'm the one that can help them think it through a different way. So it's really about making sure that the parents understand your role and you understand your role with the parents. Like I said, don't get involved in the family dynamics. Don't loan parents money. Don't give the other kids rides. Don't give the parents rides. Your relationship is with you and that mentee, okay?
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Before I ask the next question, I'm going to reflect back on the clarification Chloe had asked. Jamie did post in the Q&A a link for Kern County Child Abuse emergency numbers and mandated reporter information, just so that, you know, people can have a clear understanding on that, or if they have any questions, they can refer back to that. So we'll move forward to our next question. Can you mentor a group such as a family or siblings, and how would that differ from mentoring one person?
Wow. So if you're going to mentor a group or family or siblings, you should be in a program. Unless you're an experienced person that's done this before and knows how to do it from experience and training, because you're really going to need training to do this. There's a lot, there are programs that you can mentor family. I would recommend that you do it through a structured program, because you don't know what you don't know. You know, as parents, we can go by our instincts and we can say, oops, I made a mistake there, I did that. But as a mentor, if you make a mistake, it could be detrimental. It could cause a harm. It could cause triggers. It could get you involved in a situation that you didn't know of or didn't prepare for. So I would recommend that if you're going to mentor family or more than like two youth, you know, depending on if you have experience. So if you're an experienced mentor, when I say experience, you've been a mentor for 2+ years, you know, 2 youth, that's fine. Anything more than that, unless you've had an experience with group mentoring in a structured program, I just really wouldn't recommend it. There's just too many you're dealing with family dynamics. You could possibly be dealing with mental health issues. You could be dealing with abuse. There's just a lot of things that as a lay person, you're just not ready or you're not equipped for. And the program provides you the cover, the support, and the structure that you need. I would not recommend mentoring a family or a group, 3 or more, unless you're in a program. if, like I said, if you're an experienced mentor and you've done this for years and you understand the dynamics, you've been doing it for 5, 6 years, and you want to go and mentor three youth, and you've been a successful mentor at it, only you know if you're a successful mentor in those relationships. And if in your heart you know that you can do it and you have the experience and you feel confident going in there doing it, but if you're starting and you're hesitant and you're scared, you're not ready for that. So don't put yourself in an unnecessary situation that could bring harm to you or to the family. And remember, there's one thing about mentoring: you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And usually you don't know it until something comes up and it happens, because family will tell you everything is fine, and then it's like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And I'll give you an example. When I was I started out my mentoring career as a program manager. I was a mentoring program manager for gay and lesbian adolescent social services. And one of the youth would always show up as Henry. We'll just say Henry. Well, when he was matched with a doctor who was a gay doctor, he showed up as Teresa. How come no one told me that this was a transgender youth? And what I didn't know is that this doctor did not want to be matched with this transgender youth. I didn't know that there was biases within that dynamic, that he wanted a gay youth, not a transgender youth. And no one told me this. So there's things that you're not going to know in the beginning that you would think they would have told me this, but they didn't. And they're like, and it was kind of like, well, we all thought you knew. How would I know? I wouldn't know because no one told me. He always came as Henry. So you want to make sure that those surprise moments, that you have support from a program that can help you navigate through that. And there's just things that may come up that you just don't know, and you need to make sure that you're equipped with the right training and with the right support to deal with it. Next.
Thank you so much. We have a question here. How do you gain respect from your mentee if you're around the same age?
Wow, so that's a hard one. So I think it's really about you role modeling. It's really about you showing that, yeah, I may be 2 years older than you, but I've got some knowledge that you don't know, right? That you haven't gained yet. So it's really about role modeling. It's up to you to have them see you as someone that they can look to for advice. And it can be kind of tricky because then they're going to treat you like you're their equal and all of that. But you as a mentor have to say, I know I'm only 2 years older than you, but I got a few more skills than you have yet to gain. And it really is about, like I said, role modeling, being able to be that person that they feel that they can learn from. You know, always being, you can be a friend, but you want to set those boundaries so that they don't think they're your equal. Because once they think they're your equal, you've lost the battle. There's not going to be any respect. They're going to think, well, I know just as much as you do. So you want to make sure that you're keeping the role modeling, that you're always leading, that you're always showing that you're the adult in the relationship, that you can come with more informed information. They can look to you for help, for confidence, for confidential information, that they look to you as a role model. So it's up to you as a mentor to make sure that it could be 2 years, because I've had mentors who are like 2 years older than their mentees, and how they kept it successful was by making sure that the mentee was always looking to them as a role model, coming to them for advice, coming to them and looking to them as someone that they can refer to for help or for assistance. So it's a thin line, but it can be done. You just have to make sure you keep it that you're the role model in the relationship. And you don't forget that the mentee is not your equal as well. Next.
I think that was our last question. So thank you so much, Stephanie. We're all giving you a big round of applause. You were amazing. And thank you to all of our attendees for joining us. Just a real quick reminder that the second half of Stephanie's presentation, Mentoring Elements Part 2, will begin this Friday, January 22nd at 1. You should have the link for that in the registration confirmation email you received.
We also have self-care and trauma-informed yoga next Wednesday, the 27th at 1. And after that, we have trauma-informed care next Friday, the 29th at 1. Registration for all of these sessions is still open, so please feel free to share registration information with your friends and colleagues. Last but not least, we will be emailing out handouts and evaluation after this, so please complete that evaluation as soon as you're able. We hope you all have. Yes, we love that information. We hope you all have a great day, and we will see you back here on Friday. That's it for us.
Thank you. Bye.